Recent videos on the channel have featured my new Smokeslinger as well as the Giant Huntsman. So many of you have asked the question, how do they compare against each other? Today I'm going to answer that question for you. We're going to do spatchcock chickens on both, get the temperatures up really hot, over 350 degrees. As you know, the Giant Huntsman has a controller that makes that really easy, but the Smokeslinger has been really easy to get up to temperature as well. I'll let you know if there are any significant differences in the experience, and we'll see how they measure up head to head. Smokeslinger versus the Giant Huntsman. For today's cook, we're going to do a spatchcocked chicken. We're going to do that on both the Smokeslinger and the Giant Huntsman. So what I'm trying to do right now, while I'm bringing them up to temperature, I'm looking for them to cook at 350 degrees. So I've already set the Spider or the Venom controller on the Spider Grills, the Huntsman. I've already set it to 350 degrees. Now on the Smokeslinger, as you know, there are many different ways that you can cook on the Smokeslinger. I have tended to prefer to do what I consider to be direct heat or high heat cooks. I haven't really dabbled too much with low and slow yet, probably because I also have the Liberty 94 for low and slow. But for my Smokeslinger, I've set it up in the manner that I usually do. It's probably overkill for this cook. I filled up both baskets with lump charcoal. I like to use the tuning plates as well to kind of give it an indirect cook, and then I also like to put aluminum pans on the bottom rack to help contain the drippings and all of that and keep things from getting too greasy down in the firebox. So that's my setup. Of course, like I said, there are many different ways you can do this. So for the spatchcock chicken here, I like to hit it with some duck fat. And I'm gonna do that on both sides. I also dry brined this chicken with just kosher salt, and I let it sit in the fridge for maybe a couple of hours. Normally I like to do it for a little bit longer. But in this case, you know, we're working with a limitation of time, so I'm let it go as far as I can. Now again, I already hit this with kosher salt, so my chicken rub then does not contain any salt. It's got some other ingredients in it. It's got some paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, some black pepper. I like the 16 mesh black pepper. It's also got some brown sugar and maybe a couple of other things that I will keep to myself. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this with my chicken rub. This is also the rub that I use for my commercial cooks as well. And I find that it gives a very pleasing and satisfying taste. Of course, I'm always open to tweaking it, as that's what we do in barbecue. We keep on making little modifications, not big ones, but small ones when the need arises. And then once I get the chicken all coated with my rub, I'll just return it to my fridge, let it hang out there while I bring both of these cookers up to temperature. So that's chicken number one, and then I'm just going to do the same thing to chicken number two, and we'll get them both on their respective grills. I've allowed both the Smokeslinger and the Giant Huntsman I've given them about 30 minutes to come up to temperature. I know I said 350 degrees earlier, but I'm okay as long as everything is in that 325 range. Right now, the Huntsman is sitting at 322 degrees, which is pretty good. The fan just cut off a few seconds ago, so I don't think it's gonna push too hard to get to 350. Then over here on the Smokeslinger, On the left side, we're sitting at 300 degrees. Right side, we're sitting at 342 degrees. Quite a difference, but I'm good with that because all along I wanted to put my chicken in the middle. So I think this temperature disparity will work well with that goal in mind. So let's go ahead and get the first chicken on. And here you see I've got my drip pans already in place. So we will put this chicken on. Actually, I'll put it a little bit more on towards the right side. Next up, we'll do the Giant Huntsman. Just realized that I neglected to put my grill in place, but that's okay. So let me talk a little bit about the setup here. Over on the right side is where I have all of my charcoal banked, and then over here on the left side is where I'm going to place the chicken. So it's going to be indirect, and then also I like to use the drip pan. Similar reason to what I discussed for the Smokeslinger. I just like to try and contain the mess as well as I can. So let's go ahead and get the chicken on. I'm going to position it so that the breast is facing the coals so it can get more of the heat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let both cookers do their thing. I don't anticipate needing to really do I shouldn't need to do anything at all to the Huntsman. I think it'll probably be in that 325 range. I'll probably come back in about 1 hour and insert a wireless meat thermometer so I can begin monitoring the internal temperature. And then I'll do the same thing with the Smokeslinger. Smokeslinger is not automatically temperature controlled, but I do have these Chef's Temp thermometers that I modified my Smokeslinger with. So these actually allow me to monitor the temperature. I like the big digital readout. I can read it from a distance, or I can use the app and I can see the temperature on my app. So I'll keep my eye on it. I don't anticipate needing to do anything. Basically right now, I have both vents at the bottom completely wide open, and then over on the sides, these side vents, I also have them completely wide open on both the left and the right side. So basically I'm allowing maximum airflow to go completely through the Smokeslinger because I want these chickens to cook at a hot temperature. I'm not trying to smoke these temperatures. Let me say that again. I'm not trying to smoke these chickens. What I want to do is have them end up with a nice bite through skin. So that's why I want maximum airflow and I want high temperatures. So that is basically the strategy. Again, we'll come back in about 1 hour, temp these birds and see how they're coming along. All right, we're 1 hour into the cook, so I'm gonna do a temperature check starting with the Smokeslinger. And you know, the Smokeslinger on both sides has been holding pretty steady at about 320 internal. So we're, 320 degrees, and then our internal temperature right now is showing about 137. So we definitely have a little ways to go, probably at least a half hour, maybe more. But remember, we're not cooking the time, we're always cooking the temperature. We want 165 internal in the breast. You can probably pull it a little early, maybe 163. Carryover cooking will take it to 165. So that's what we're looking for. So now we'll take a look at the Smokeslinger. Now the Smokeslinger is a little more interesting because again, set the temperature for 350. and it has consistently been in the 310 range. Right now it's at 288 internal. So I might need to think about, do I need to add more fuel? Not quite sure. I've done a few cooks on the Giant Huntsman, and that has kind of been my one question. I think it is outstanding for doing low and slow cooks and leaving it to the venom controller to handle temperatures. But as far as the higher temperature cooks, I'm just seeing where it kind of falls short of getting to the goal that I set. And I don't know if maybe that's just an internal, some kind of mechanism, like maybe it's cooking to that temperature because at the grate level it's going to be a different temperature. I'm not sure, but let's take a look. Like, for instance, it says 288 down here, but the built-in thermometer says it's 300 degrees. And I'm going to take a look and see what our internal temperature is on the chicken. And it's giving me 135. So it's pretty much, in the same ballpark as the internal temperature that we were getting on the Smokeslinger. So they're both very much in line. So what that is telling me is that I don't really need to obsess about the fact that I set the temperature for 350, but it's not showing that on the display. I think somehow it's been calibrated and somehow it knows. It knows where it needs to be. So I'm going to trust the technology. I think we're fine. Okay, so we're about 2 hours into the cook, and I do have a goal. I would like to finish this cook sooner rather than later. So, couple of things. Over on the Giant Huntsman, I talked about how the temperature was not exceeding a certain level. The last time I went and checked the internal temperature on the chicken, we got to where we are right now when I closed it back up, which is about 260, 262. So one adjustment that I decided to make is on the controller, I bumped up the temperature to 375 degrees. Huntsman's app, the Spider Grills app, also gives you guidance based on the temperature goal that you set. It will then recommend how far open you should have the exhaust. So previously, when I had it set to 350 degrees, the recommendation was to open the exhaust 1/4 of the way open. So now that I've bumped it up to 375, I've opened it halfway. And I'm really trying hard to just trust the process, right? The app says to do one thing, so I'm trying to do it that way. Part of me in my head is saying, if I really want to see 375 down here, maybe I just need to open the exhaust all the way, full tilt. But again, I'm trying to trust the process. So since I've been talking, it hasn't moved, from 262 degrees. And I know it's not an issue of whether or not I have enough fuel, because the last time I took a peek, we have plenty of fuel on the inside. There's plenty of fuel that hasn't even lit yet inside of the Giant Huntsman. And that's one of the things that they promote. They talk about how you shouldn't need a great amount of fuel to even do a long cook. Granted, that could again be better for low and slow than a high temperature cook. So I'm just kind of learning. Again, I'm learning the Giant Huntsman as we go. As I make these videos, I'm just learning a little bit more about it and kind of figuring out the little quirks and nuances. Now over here on the Smokeslinger, I'd also like to see it cook a little bit faster, my chicken. My left side now is showing 300 degrees. Right side sitting at 284. My chicken is more on the right side than it is the left. That's because earlier on the right side was cooking hotter. But now that more of the heat is over here on the left, I'm gonna go ahead and move this chicken over to the right side. And try and take advantage of that extra heat that's happening. Because again, I want to try and move this along. So this is a live cook in motion, just kind of showing you some of the pivots that you may have to experience during the cook. We'll check back in and let you know where things stand, probably in another 20-25 minutes. Here's where we are 2.5 hours in. So the Smokeslinger has come up to temperature internally. I'm gonna pull it off. But then what we've got going on the Giant Huntsman, the last time we checked in, I decided to bump up the temperature on the app to 375 to see if I could get the temperature to come up. Temperature did not come up. Opened the vent halfway on the exhaust, bumped up that temperature. It stayed around 250. We're really close to reaching the desired internal temperature, 165 in the breast. So what I decided to do is I noticed that inside, the fuel that's kind of in the center and more to the rear is burning, while the fuel that's at the front of the grill has not caught, not burning. So what I decided to do was to pour some lit charcoal over the unlit coals to try and finish off this cook. So currently it's sitting at 325, and I think that chicken will be done in a matter of minutes. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and get the Smokeslinger chicken off. And we're gonna start to let it rest while we wait on the Huntsman version to finish off. So that's where we are, live cook. These are the pivots that sometimes you have to make. All right, the time has come to cut into these chickens and see where we landed. There were some unique little challenges along the way, and I'll talk about that as we wrap things up. First off, this chicken right here, this is the chicken that came from the Smokeslinger. And then on this side, we have the chicken that came from the Giant Huntsman. Normally, I would let them both rest a little bit longer, but again, I'm a little squeezed for time, so we are going to keep moving on. So let me first start by cutting the Smokeslinger version. So here's what we got on the Smokeslinger version. And then here we'll take a look at the Giant Huntsman version. Okay. And then I always like to get some dark meat. Let me see, let me get some of this dark meat over here. So again, this is the Smokeslinger. No, this is the Huntsman. Okay, over here we've got the Smokeslinger. Well worth the wait. I mean, this is good. And get a little bit of that skin as well, because that's where all the rub is. So again, this was a high heat cook. The skin is very good flavor. Again, this wasn't a smoked chicken, so I will say I'm not getting much smoke flavor from this, but then again, my taste buds could also be kind of desensitized. but I'm liking that chicken. Now here's the Giant Huntsman version. I got a little bit of skin here. It's interesting for me. I'm not really picking up too much difference between the two. I feel like these are very, very similar. Again, on this Huntsman version, not picking up a lot of smoked flavor, definitely not a smoked chicken. Very similar. From the appearance, I think I do like the appearance of the Smokeslinger version a little better. I think the Huntsman, the rub, a little less consistent across the skin. And I don't know if that's because of the cook or, I don't know. I don't really know what necessarily to attribute that to. I'm not going to say that that's going to be an automatic, consistent result. But I do feel like the Smokeslinger chicken is beautiful. Now for me, I think what this really comes down to is the cook itself, okay? The cooking process between these two cookers. So the challenges that I had on this high heat cook were really on the Giant Huntsman side. That's the side with technology, and I wanted to trust the technology. What I found throughout the cook, again, I was looking for 350, hoping for 325. Throughout most of the cook, the Huntsman was in the 315-ish range. I made an adjustment. I bumped up the temp on the controller to 375 degrees, hoping that that would increase the temperature that the Huntsman was cooking at. It didn't help, not a single bit. Even opened the exhaust from a quarter open to half open, and that didn't help. It didn't make a difference. So those are some points of frustration. I've done some low and slow cooks on the Huntsman, and I feel that that is probably the sweet spot for where it performs in terms of when you're using it with the app, with the Venom controller. On the Smokeslinger, didn't have to make any adjustments to the vents. I had everything wide open throughout the cook. The only change that I made was probably 3/4 of the way in the cook. I moved the chicken more from the right side to the left side of the Smokeslinger because the left side was showing it was cooking at a hotter temperature. It was interesting, after I made that switch, then it reversed. So the side that the chicken was not on was cooking hotter than the side that the chicken was on. Nonetheless, it brought me up to my desired internal temperature without me having to make any other adjustments. So I guess my verdict in terms of high heat cooking chicken, which one am I gonna reach for? I'm gonna reach for the Smokeslinger because I'm not being handicapped potentially by the technology. I mean, I love the smarts in the Huntsman, but when it came down to it, just letting everything ride and cook naturally on the Smokeslinger ended up being an easier process, a process that had no frustrations, and it got me to the finish line where I wanted to be. Finished first, and again, I think the chicken looks a little prettier. So what are your thoughts? I'm curious, for those of you that already own a Huntsman, what has your experience been like cooking at high heat temperatures? And I'm talking 325 and above. Do you find that the controller is able to handle it, or does it struggle the way that I struggle today? Let me know in the comments Also, check out the Backyard SmokeMaster Society. This is the kind of stuff we talk about all the time inside of the group. It's free to join. Go to backyardsmokemaster.com/society. It'll take you 20 seconds to sign up and you're in, and that way you'll never miss out when I do a podcast, drop a new video. There are folks that you can get in there and commune with, ask questions, get your questions answered, share recipes, all of that inside of the society. So I hope to see you there. This is Kenyatta Robinson. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you soon.